Thanks, Cathaoirleach. I move the second reading of
now read a second time.
Of the 35th Amendment of the Constitution, repeal of the 8th Amendment Bill 2016. I'll just refer first of all to the potential government amendment or counter motion to oppose this bill. I think it's seen by people as being a disgraceful manoeuvre. I think the Dail and the electorate are very clear about what's happening, that Fine Gael and unfortunately the independents are opposing now repeal of the 8th Amendment in effect. They're ensuring it never happens in the lifetime of this government, because the timeline that they've put forward would bring everything to 2018. This government hopefully won't even be in existence at that point, and certainly the arrangement with Fianna Fáil would suggest that. Now, it isn't surprising, given that some of the architects of the 8th Amendment itself are still key figures in this government. Obviously, the Taoiseach and one of his leading ministers, Minister Noonan. But what will enrage and anger many women and young people is that independents who are elected on a platform of repealing the 8th Amendment and on a lifetime commitment to opposition to whips are now buckling under a whip and actually kicking this issue to touch. And so women must wait, and also so must young people who are very impatient now to downgrade the Church's grip on people's lives. Now, in 1983, in the debate on the 8th Amendment, there was a Salem-style atmosphere in this House. A whole host of TDs spoke about a holocaust of the unborn. There was obviously no regard whatsoever for women in crisis pregnancies, with a few very notable exceptions in the Shannon and in other places. Today we have a very different debate, Ministers, because this is about bodily autonomy, which is a concept that is now increasingly demanded by the population. So no, we don't think that an embryo or a fetus should have equal status to a woman, a live woman in our Constitution. The momentum for repeal has been increasingly obvious. We've had the Mazer mural, the repeal jumpers, Two Women Travel. We've had the historic 25,000 March for Choice. And I salute, and as does the Socialist Party and the Anti-Austerity Alliance, particularly young people who've made a decision that they're going to fight to bring change on this issue. They've been inspired by the marriage equality campaign last year. They're not going to accept your Irish solution to the Irish problem tonight. We have a Dáil that's now a severe impediment to progress on this issue, and yet the Dáil is the only place where a referendum can be triggered. And if you really want repeal of the 8th Amendment, you vote for this bill, because there will be a whole series of stages to getting this bill progressed. And if that's what you want, you vote for it. Meanwhile, the Citizens' Assembly can deliberate. And I would say to the people who are involved in the repeal movement, we have to continue the pressure to end the possible stymieing of a very important issue. We need to look no further than Poland, where hundreds of thousands of women and men have come out onto the streets and forced their government to change. Now, in the past 2 months, we've seen another trend. We've seen a series of articles and opinion pieces and polls which are telling us that women are asking for far too much, that we give them a little bit of abortion rights, but not full, that they should tone things down on the radical left, in one article by Michael Clifford. By the way, the left is the only force in this country that's ever championed repeal and pro-choice, and including in 1983, the 3 left TDs tried to prevent the madness that engulfed this Dáil. But society in Ireland, we're told, hasn't really progressed that much. People aren't ready, is the new mantra. And we are told we must continue with the slow pace of incremental change that's been the hallmark of Irish society for decades, but people are not prepared to do that. Now, Minister Catherine Zappone now tells us that there's not enough support for a pro-choice position. I mean, if the civil rights movement in the 1950s in America had listened to that in the racist southern states, we'd be a long way behind where we even are. And even if it was the case that only a minority of people are pro-choice, it doesn't preclude us asking for what's necessary, which is legislation to deal with the 12 women who leave this state every single day. The Minister tweeted a couple of them recently, and including 3 women in this country accessing medical abortion pills through Women on Web and having abortions in their own homes, 1,000 abortions in Ireland. That will continue legally or illegally, whether a referendum is called or not. And that's what you have to stand over. I would remind the Government that this is the 4th anniversary of the death, tragically, of Savita Halappanavar. You are not even talking 4 years on about dealing with what led to her death, which is abortion for a woman's health. You're not even thinking about that. It's quite incredible, the slow pace of change that you want people to accept. I don't think that it is the case. I think if we had a referendum to repeal the 8th, we would win a majority to that position. I think the key point is that we must keep women's bodies out of the Constitution. It is not the place to be dealing with what the Taoiseach himself said are not black and white issues. It isn't normal to do so. And it's been a disaster for 33 years, has acted as a chilling effect on doctors, particularly in the case of Savita, but many others. Now, some parties are actually suggesting that abortion for a woman's life being at risk, rape and fatal fetal abnormality is an adequate response to what's needed. And we totally reject that. And we put forward the idea we must repeal the odious 8th Amendment and then legislate for what's needed. And I would also argue that the people who are arguing that not too fast, let's have a slow and steady pace, aren't in touch with the popular mood. It's only 3 years ago that people sitting over there thought it was fine to bring in a 14-year jail sentence for a woman having an abortion. Nobody in society thinks that's acceptable. I think the commentators in the media did not predict either the massive turnout there would be in working-class communities in relation to the marriage equality referendum. Opinions are not fixed. We should have a debate if this bill is passed. Absolutely. We need to have a debate throughout the length and breadth of the country. But tying repeal of the 8th Amendment to any restriction in terms of legislation or is actually predetermining the outcome of the debate. It's actually saying in advance there's deserving abortions and then there's undeserving abortions. We need women themselves to be able to be trusted to make those decisions. And that is the view of the Anti-Austerity Alliance and People for Profit. Now, just in wrapping up, we believe that there's an underestimation of the real radicalisation that has taken place in society, but also nothing short of dealing with a situation where working-class women, poor women, migrant women, those who can't travel so easily, young women, students, all women should be able to decide this for themselves. It's bodily autonomy. And I'm going to finish in relation to a quote from Martin Luther King. Every single social movement has been told, hold on, you're looking for too much. And Martin Luther King answered by saying, for years now I've heard the word wait. The wait has almost always meant never. And I would remind people who got elected, who voted only 18 months ago over here for this very same bill, to review their position on this in the next 48 hours.
Thank you. Deputy Coppinger, sharing your